What's this? What brought you to the office today? CEO Kim Hak-sung, who was sitting on the sofa, frowned as if he had seen something unpleasant upon seeing Lee Woo-yeon. I came to say hello since it's been a while. What are you looking at? A manager's resume. What? Whose? Choi In-seop's. Why him? What's with him? What are you planning to do? You? What would I do? People might misunderstand if they hear you, CEO. This was no lie. Lee Woo-yeon hadn't done anything. The new manager had adapted surprisingly quickly. He didn't do anything that Lee Woo-yeon disliked or that would upset him, proving his claim of being a fan true. He prepared foods Lee liked every morning and often played music on the way home that Lee enjoyed. He even knew that Lee usually drank black coffee but preferred a latte when it rained. His eye for picking clothes was also impressive, to the point that even the coordinator admired it. He chose outfits that suited Lee Woo-yeon perfectly, almost as if he had a sixth sense. Additionally, he had the sense to step back when Lee was in a bad mood. He was perfect. So perfect that it was almost irritating. Why are you looking at In-seop's resume anyway? He's working with me, so naturally, I'm curious. Don't act like that's normal. Have you ever looked at a manager's resume before? So, can't I take a look now? Lee Woo-yeon asked without even lifting his head as he flipped through Choi In-seop's resume. Since his true nature had been revealed to CEO Kim, he sometimes showed his real personality in front of him. It's not a problem, but... Then it settled. Lee Woo-yeon meticulously examined Choi In-seop's resume. So? What's the issue? There's no issue. Then why? Because there's no issue, that's the issue. Whether there's a problem or not, you always find a way to complain. What's wrong with you? CEO Kim Hak-sung sighed and sat down across from Lee Woo-yeon on the sofa. Lee Woo-yeon smiled, observing the CEO's meticulously polished appearance from head to toe. CEO, you should have been a celebrity yourself. Me? I was, back in the day. A model. Really? I didn't know that. Yeah. What would you know, with your lack of interest in others? No, I do take an interest in others. Sure. You really are an actor. You lie so smoothly. Despite CEO Kim's sarcastic remark, Lee Woo-yeon continued to read through Choi In-seop's resume. Why? I personally selected Choi In-seop and found nothing wrong. Yes, nothing seems out of the ordinary on the resume. On paper, Choi In-seop looked as ordinary as the typical South Korean man. The second son among two sons and a daughter. Born in Seoul, graduated from a 4-year university in Seoul. A TOEIC score of 800, a short stint in the US for language study, which was somewhat notable. Isn't he a bit overqualified to be a manager? These days, getting a job is as hard as plucking stars from the sky. Some start their own management companies after learning the ropes here. Is Choi In-seop that type? It was hard to imagine the quiet and calm Choi In-seop starting a business. No, he's not that type, but he is a bit unique. Still, he seems good enough. How's his work? He's doing well, right? Yes. Good. Keep using him well. He seems like a good guy. And while you're here, take a look at the script we received. A script? Isn't it your job to pick those? Kim Hak-sung's knack for selecting projects was exceptional, so Lee Woo-yeon had long since handed over the decision-making to him. Several good ones have come in. Which one do you think is best? A villain role. Lee Woo-yeon answered with a smile, which CEO Kim immediately rejected. No. If you play that, your true nature will come out and it'll be too scary. A few perceptive ones might realize how nasty you really are. Despite his gentle image, Lee Woo-yeon wanted to play a vicious villain. Every time he mentioned it, CEO Kim firmly shook his head. You'll be too realistic, and people will see your true colors. Playing only good roles can be boring. How about this? A serial killer. It sounds fun. Lee Woo-yeon picked up a script that CEO Kim had already set aside. It suits you too well. Ha ha ha. CEO, you think I'd kill someone? This one's good too. A psycho who goes mad from loving the heroine too much. A murderer. Don't do murder roles. If you do that, you'll only get offered murder roles afterward. All the ads will drop. I've earned enough, what's a few lost ads? Enough. No more nonsense. Choose from these. CEO Kim pushed the scripts he had selected toward Lee Woo-yeon. As Lee Woo-yeon skimmed the covers, he picked one up. This one looks good. The director is good and the writer is good. It's a historical drama, so it should do well. Right. I thought so too. The writer said they wanted to work with you and sent this script first. Do you believe that kind of flattery? For someone who seems shrewd, you're pretty naive, CEO. Even if a script had been rejected by other actors, the writer would often say they wrote it with you in mind. Come on. If someone else had it first, I'd hear about it. It's true. You always doubt everything people say. No, I don't. Lee Woo-yeon smiled as he flipped through the script. CEO Kim felt a chill every time Lee Woo-yeon smiled with his teeth showing. Unknowing women praised Lee Woo-yeon's straight teeth, but CEO Kim couldn't agree. Let's go with this one. The script is really good. Okay. I'll get in touch. Thank you. Lee Woo-yeon stood up. He was still holding Choi In-seob's resume. Why are you taking that? I'll take a closer look at it. Don't. It's creepy. If you want to fire him, just fire him. No, please don't fire him. I'm tired of reviewing resumes. I've never fired anyone. With that, Lee Woo-yeon said goodbye and left. Manager CHA, who had been quietly sorting documents in the corner, spoke up. He's right. He's never fired anyone. They all left on their own. Who doesn't know that? Anyway, Manager CHA, keep an eye on Lee Woo-yeon this time. Help Choi In-seob out too, okay? Yes, I will. Got it. Manager Choi should have just managed Lee Woo-yeon. It's so tough because he refused to do it. CEO Kim Hak-sung shouted in frustration. Manager CHA, who was quietly organizing documents, turned his head slowly. You want me to go through that hell again? Can you say that after seeing me cough up blood? The day after discovering Lee Woo-yeon's nasty temper, CEO Kim had called in Manager CHA and suggested he take charge of Lee Woo-yeon. Manager CHA nodded in agreement at the time, thinking it would be disastrous if Lee Woo-yeon's true nature was revealed. However, less than a month later, it was Manager CHA who faced disaster. Lee Woo-yeon, having no need to put on an act in front of Manager CHA, let his temper fly, eventually causing Manager CHA to collapse, coughing up blood. Since that day, Manager CHA declared he would never manage Lee Woo-yeon again. If I manage Lee Woo-yeon again, I'm not human. If it comes to that, I'll call the sports newspaper reporters and hold a press conference. You've been warned. Not going to happen, not in a million years. CEO Kim muttered to himself, fixing his disheveled hair in the mirror. Is there really no one in the world who can handle Lee Woo-yeon's true nature? Damn it. Manager CHA slammed the documents he was holding onto the desk. If there is such a crazy person in the world, I'll call him brother for life. You should know better, seriously. There's no one, so stop shouting. CEO Kim retorted, and manager CHA stormed out of the meeting room, yelling in frustration. CEO Kim sighed bitterly and began tidying up the scripts Lee Woo-yeon had left behind. His thoughts wandered to the new, kind, and capable manager, Choi In-seop. It would be nice, but it's impossible. He shook his head, trying to dismiss the thought that had just crossed his mind. This is the content for today's interview. I've prepared brief answers based on your previous interviews. He wondered when Choi In-seop managed to prepare all this, working from early morning until late at night. It seemed as if Choi In-seop had more than 24 hours in a day, perhaps 36. Do you not need it? Choi In-seop asked, blinking his large eyes. No, thank you. Lee Woo-yeon accepted the file and quickly scanned the questions and suggested answers. Reporters usually sent their questions in advance before an interview. Today's interviewer was notorious for asking actors embarrassing questions. That's why the agency had specifically requested the anticipated questions. It should take about 40 minutes. Lee Woo-yeon murmured, estimating the time based on the question sheet. He planned to go home and rest after finishing this schedule. It looks like we'll finish early today. Yes, it does. What will you do after? Go on a date? Ah, no. I don't do that. Why not? Don't you have a lover? No. Lee Woo-yeon saw the tension in the hands gripping the steering wheel. He leaned back in his seat and continued. Then what do you do on your days off? I just rest at home. Finding the answer dull, Lee Woo-yeon lost interest in his manager and closed his eyes. Choi In-seop, unsure if he should add anything, noticed his boss had closed his eyes and sighed softly. Arriving at the cafe in Gyeongdam-dong, Choi In-seop turned and asked. We've arrived. Where should I wait? Come inside and have a cup of tea. I'll just Even at the seemingly trivial invitation, Choi In-seop stiffened and waved his hands. Lee Woo-yeon laughed, saying it was a joke, and got out of the car. Choi In-seop pressed his opposite hand with his palm, a habit he had developed recently. He reminded himself to stay alert. All right, let's do this. Choi In-seop slapped his cheeks with his now warm palms to pep himself up. He recalled the Korean proverb that even if a tiger bites, staying alert can save you. He parked the car and stepped out, taking a seat on the terrace where he could see Lee Woo-yeon and the reporter through the cafe's glass walls. The friendly staff offered him a lap blanket with his coffee, seeing he chose to sit outside in the chilly weather. Choi In-seop placed the lap blanket over his knees and warmed his cold fingers around the hot mug. According to his gathered information, Lee Woo-yeon disliked his manager shadowing him closely. Maintaining a proper distance was essential. Though he wished he could stick to his side and take a photo every second, he knew he couldn't. He was aware that his time as Lee Woo-yeon's manager was limited to a maximum of 3 months. Let's see. Today marks 10 days and 1, so. Choi In-seop sighed, counting the days left on his fingers. He habitually glanced at Lee Woo-yeon. From the window, Lee Woo-yeon's profile looked as beautiful as a painting, conversing with the reporter. The scene of Lee Woo-yeon, holding a coffee cup with his handsome, neat face, looked like a masterpiece painted by a master who sold his soul to the devil. Huh? Watching Lee Woo-yeon's profile, Choi In-seop stood up without hesitation. There's a rumor like that. What do you think? Ha ha. Is there such a rumor? Lee Woo-yeon smiled gracefully but cursed inwardly. The persistent reporter, Kim Ha-shin, kept rephrasing the same question repeatedly. Yes. According to my sources, you changed managers 5 times last year alone, and there have been quite a few changes this year too. Is there a special reason for this? As I mentioned earlier, they all resigned for personal reasons. Any other questions? The purpose of this interview was to discuss his upcoming movie release. However, from the moment she sat down, the reporter had been relentless with questions about his managers. Don't you think resigning for personal reasons is too frequent? Generally, celebrities with an image as good as yours don't often see such turnover in their management. Am I the first exception? Then. Lee Woo-yeon smiled and sipped his coffee. Damn woman. I can see your game. No matter what I say, this interview will be twisted into a sensational headline. Lee Woo-yeon wondered how much longer he would have to endure this interview. You know, as a reporter, I've learned that there's no smoke without fire. What do you think, Lee Woo-yeon? I don't think much of it. Lee Woo-yeon put down his coffee cup. He was nearing his limit. It had been less than 10 minutes since they sat down. If only someone would die, I could use it as an excuse to leave. Lee Woo-yeon thought horrible thoughts while smiling brightly. What about the rumor that you torment your managers so much they all quit? And the claim that your good image is all a calculated act? These were the most common types of negative comments on his articles. Despite being known for having no anti-fans, he wasn't immune to occasional negative comments. Whenever he saw accusations of his actions being all an act, he would smile, baring his teeth as if he found it amusing. No one can be perfect. I'm human too, so I must have some flaws. He gave a standard, cliché response. Reporter Kim Ha-shin chuckled and showed her notebook. Look here. These are the dates when your managers joined and left. Don't you have any thoughts looking at this? Lee Woo-yeon smiled brightly as he looked at the densely written dates. This fucking bitch is really pushing it. Cursing the reporter inwardly, Lee Woo-yeon's eyes sparkled. He called out his new manager's name in a loud voice. In-seop. Choi In-seop, who had been hiding behind a large potted plant, opened his eyes wide like a cat caught by surprise. In-seop, I heard you were working nearby. Did you come here for coffee? Lee Woo-yeon always treated his manager with respect. But treating them with respect and being informal with them were worlds apart. He never engaged in private conversations or personal interactions with his managers, even though he told them to speak comfortably with him. He never dropped formalities himself. Choi In-seop was shocked to hear Lee Woo-yeon calling him by his first name without the last name, especially after only knowing him for a few days. Let me buy you a cup. Lee Woo-yeon briefly excused himself to the reporter and stood up. He patted Choi In-seop on the shoulder and asked what he wanted to drink. What should I have? What would be good? Pretending to look at the menu, Choi In-seop's back was drenched in a cold sweat. He had noticed something off about Lee Woo-yeon's demeanor and came inside only to be caught in this awkward situation. Just pick anything. It's up to you. Choi In-seop quickly understood the hidden threat in Lee Woo-yeon's seemingly kind words. He was telling him to just pick something without overthinking. I'll have an Americano. Hot? As Choi In-seop placed the order, Lee Woo-yeon took out his wallet and handed his card to the staff. The staff, sneaking glances at Lee Woo-yeon's face, accepted the card. Please sign on the terminal. Lee Woo-yeon smiled and picked up the pen. In that moment, Choi In-seop noticed Lee Woo-yeon's fingertip pointing to the terminal. Instead of signing his name, he wrote a short message. After a brief hesitation, the staff handed Lee Woo-yeon paper and a pen, and this time he signed his name properly. In-seop, have a drink and relax. Sure. Sensing that he needed to respond casually, Choi In-seop matched Lee Woo-yeon's informal tone. Li Wuyan returned to his seat, while Choi In-seop quickly took his coffee and headed outside. Who was that? A younger acquaintance. I heard he works nearby and I happened to run into him. Sorry, where were we? We were talking about managers. Ah, right. Actually. Reporter Kim Ha-shin swallowed nervously, waiting for Li Wuyan's next words. Then, Li Wuyan's phone, which was on the table, rang. Excuse me for a moment. The name displayed on the phone was Manager. Li Wuyan apologized and took the call. It didn't take long for his expression to harden. I'm sorry. Li Wuyan stood up, bowing apologetically to the reporter. Something urgent has come up and I need to return to the office immediately. I'm very sorry. What happened? I received news that someone I know has lost their father. He was like a brother to me and I had met his father several times. Tears filled Li Wuyan's eyes as he trailed off, visibly distressed. Seeing this, reporter Kim Ha-shin, almost involuntarily, told him to go quickly. Li Wuyan gathered his things. I'll see you next time. Please schedule through the office. Yes, sure. I'll take care of the bill. Once again, I apologize. Li Wuyan bowed courteously and left the cafe. Watching his retreating figure, the reporter had to admit her defeat. She could sense from her experience that the broken rapport couldn't be restored. Sorry. What for? For using informal speech. As soon as they got into the car, Choi In-seop apologized. Li Wuyan looked at him curiously. I used informal speech first, didn't I? Yes. You saved me. I was really in a bind. Choi In-seop had not gone inside to save him but to observe the troublesome situation. But seeing the words Li Wuyan had written on the terminal, he had no choice but to follow his lead. Call me. Choi In-seop had called as soon as he stepped out and turned the corner. As expected, Li Wuyan came out shortly after. But how did you know? Know what? That I was in trouble. You were outside, right? On the terrace. Well. Choi In-seop felt dizzy. How could he explain in a normal way that he had watched countless movies and developed his stalking skills to understand Li Wuyan? I just the coffee was too bitter, so I went in to get some syrup. By chance? Yes, by chance. Choi In-seop nodded eagerly, as if he had found a lifeline. Li Wuyan gave him a warm look. What a fortunate coincidence. His voice was sweet, as if comforting a child with candy. Choi In-seop hurriedly turned his head away. Li Wuyan watched his manager's reaction with interest. Shall I take you home? Choi In-seop asked as he started the car. Li Wuyan, lost in thought for a moment, patted his shoulder and asked, How about dinner tonight? When Li Wuyan entered the restaurant, everyone's eyes turned to him. He walked to a deep inside table naturally, guided by the waiter. Choi In-seop, who was suddenly having dinner with him, quietly followed, pale and silent. After choosing a menu recommended by Li Wuyan, Choi In-seop silently fiddled with his water glass. Choi In-seop. Yes? How is the manager job? It's fine. Though his tone was gentle, Choi In-seop waited nervously for Li Wuyan's next words. Is there anything difficult for you? No, not at all. Do you like sports? I saw on your resume that one of your hobbies is soccer. Yes, just a bit. Choi In-seop had written soccer as a hobby to appear ordinary. He started sweating. Why is this happening? Why is Li Wuyan, who usually doesn't show interest in others, paying attention to his resume, especially something trivial like a hobby? What made you apply for the manager position? What? Choi In-seop felt like he was sinking deeper into a labyrinth. He couldn't fathom why Li Wuyan had suddenly taken him to an upscale restaurant and was now interrogating him. He had simulated countless scenarios in his head while working beside Li Wuyan, but this situation had never crossed his mind. Is it because you're my fan? Did you change your career path because of that? The somewhat accusatory tone made Choi In-seop feel even more intimidated. Stay calm. Stay calm. He doesn't know anything yet. I've always been interested in this field. A friend recommended JN Entertainment, so I submitted my resume. Choi In-seop recited his motivation for applying, a line he could now say even with his eyes closed. Do you plan to stay in this field? Yes, if possible. Choi In-seop was already aware that Li Wuyan frequently changed managers. It was information easy to find with a bit of digging. The longest he could stay by Li Wuyan's side as a manager was 3 months. After that, Choi In-seop planned to leave Korea quietly, making sure Li Wuyan wouldn't even remember him. He intended to flow in like water and disappear just as smoothly. You seem well suited for the job. Li Wuyan continued, sipping the wine the waiter had poured. You've adapted well, you're quick-witted, and you're diligent. All qualities that are desirable. Excuse me. According to the CEO. Oh, yes. Choi In-seop sighed with relief. He thought Li Wuyan was saying he liked him as a manager and his heart nearly sank. He had to maintain a delicate balance. He needed to stay by Li Wuyan's side for as long as possible without leaving a memorable impression. Choi In-seop steeled himself and looked up, but he avoided meeting Li Wuyan's eyes. How old are you again? 26. You look much younger. I hear that a lot. Choi In-seop disliked such conversations. Having personal or casual discussions with Li Wuyan was the least desired scenario in the simulations he had run in his head. In reality, Choi In-seop was 24. The identity of the 26-year-old Choi In-seop was one he had purchased. Although he knew Li Wuyan's question was casual, his heart felt like it was going to explode. He drank cold water to calm himself. Just as Li Wuyan, who had been deep in thought, was about to speak, the waiter entered the room with their food. The dishes looked expensive, even without asking. Choi In-seop wondered why Li Wuyan was buying such costly food for someone like him, just a manager, as he picked up his fork. Choi In-seop. Yes? Unintentionally, Choi In-seop looked up and met his gaze. Li Wuyan was smiling. It was the same face he had seen countless times in pictures and on screen. Actually, you know. Choi In-seop watched in a daze as Li Wuyan elegantly cut his steak with a knife in one hand. There was a captivating charm to his every move, from drinking water to gesturing with his hands to holding the knife. Each small action was so beautiful that it made one hold their breath and watch. When someone... At that point, Li Wuyan paused and hummed, trailing off. Is there a problem? No. Please wait a moment. Li Wuyan called the waiter. When asked what the problem was, he inquired about the name of the chef who had prepared their meal. After the waiter, looking a bit troubled, answered, Li Wuyan stood up. Excuse me for a moment. Li Wuyan left the room. Left alone, Choi In-seop hesitated for a moment before standing up. He opened the door and peeked out, but the hallway was empty. He quickly went to Lee Woo-yeon's seat and checked his phone. Unfortunately, it was locked. Choi In-seop recalled seeing Lee Woo-yeon entering the password and quickly tried a few 4-digit combinations. After a few attempts, the lock screen opened. Choi In-seop's hands trembled. He had once found Lee Woo-yeon's phone in the car but hadn't thought of checking the password and regretted returning it to him. First, let's check the call log. Damn. Seeing the call log, Choi In-seop clicked his tongue. Lee Woo-yeon's phone only had calls from him, CEO Kim, manager CHA, and other work-related contacts. The phone book was the same, only work-related numbers, no repeated female names. Just in case, he checked the photo gallery. Apart from a few default flower photos, there was nothing. No selfies, nothing. Choi In-seop muttered as he checked various things but found no useful information. He returned the phone to its place and sat back down, but Lee Woo-yeon didn't return. What is this? Where did he go all of a sudden? Choi In-seop remembered the moment Lee Woo-yeon called the waiter and dipped his finger in the steak on his plate. Yuck. Choi In-seop spat out the steak, thinking it was incredibly salty. He downed his water. The steak was so salty that even if it had been marinated in salt, it shouldn't be this bad. He rubbed his tongue with his sleeve but the intense saltiness lingered. He respected Lee Woo-yeon for quietly seeking out the chef without showing any discomfort. This is a fight. Choi In-seop quietly grabbed his phone and stepped outside. This might be a perfect opportunity to capture something significant. He walked cautiously down the hall, alert. Seeing the waiter who had served them, he quietly asked where Lee Woo-yeon had gone. The waiter pointed towards a door beside the kitchen and disappeared. It was an emergency exit. His heart pounded. Choi In-seop pressed his hand to his chest. Slowly. Slowly. He always murmured this when his heart raced, feeling as if it slowed his blood flow to his will. Choi In-seop carefully turned the door handle and opened the door. At first, he couldn't see anyone and was about to close the door when he heard a faint woman's voice. Clinging to the door handle, Choi In-seop listened intently. He heard a woman's laughter followed by occasional words from Lee Woo-yeon. Down the stairs, he saw a woman in a white chef's uniform and Lee Woo-yeon talking face to face. Instead of being angry at the chef who served the salty steak, Lee Woo-yeon seemed to be having a secretive conversation with her. Choi In-seop pressed himself against the door, eavesdropping on their conversation. So, did you serve me the salted steak on purpose? Right. When you came all the way here without saying hello and went straight to the room, I never expected you'd come with just your manager. I'm sorry. I meant to introduce him later. Liar. You didn't even think about it, did you? No way. Lee Woo-yeon whispered something in her ear, making her laugh louder. Choi In-seop sighed. He wasn't shocked by such a scene, knowing Lee Woo-yeon had complicated relationships with women. He had already taken several photos of him with various female celebrities while tailing him. But these weren't the kind of scenes Choi In-seop was after. Still. Choi In-seop took a photo of Lee Woo-yeon and the female chef talking together, thinking it might come in handy someday. After snapping the photo, he carefully closed the door as he had found it and walked down the hall, checking the photos on his phone. What am I even doing? Taking photos, gathering information on Lee Woo-yeon, and trying his best not to upset him. People might think he was a fan who became a manager out of genuine admiration. But I hate Lee Woo-yeon so much. Choi In-seop put his phone in his pocket and headed to the restroom. He wanted to wash his hands. It was a minor act, but he washed his hands whenever he felt uneasy. He turned the faucet to the blue side on purpose, letting cold water run over his hands as he lathered up with soap. Even though his fingers felt like they were freezing, Choi In-seop thoroughly scrubbed his hands until they were numb and the cold sensation disappeared. He pressed his red, swollen fingers to his cheeks. The sharp coldness and the tingling warmth made him feel alive. His fingertips and cheeks reddened. Choi In-seop looked at his reflection in the mirror. A freckled, quiet boy who always looked scared stared back at him, as if accusing him of what he was doing. He shook his head and looked in the mirror again. His frightened eyes were the same, but he had grown. The freckles were barely noticeable unless you looked closely. He hadn't completely shed his boyish looks, but he was an adult now. Hang in there. For Jenny. Saying Jenny's name made his heart ache out of habit. He had to uncover Lee Woo-yeon's true nature and gather evidence within the next 2 months. He knew there was another side to Lee Woo-yeon that people didn't see, and he had to expose it. He had made a promise. But he had no evidence to prove Lee Woo-yeon's true nature. To obtain it, Choi In-seop had followed Lee Woo-yeon closely, collecting data like a stalker. But the only flaw he could find was Lee Woo-yeon's womanizing. That wasn't enough. He needed solid evidence of how rotten Lee Woo-yeon was at his core, to show the world the vile personality hidden behind his charming facade. For Jane for her, he had to do it. Just wait, you bastard. What are you doing? Startled by the sudden voice, Choi In-seop turned around. Lee Woo-yeon had entered the restroom and was now beside him, washing his hands. Choi In-seop's heart raced as he wondered if Lee Woo-yeon had heard his muttering or suspected anything. He worried if this whole meeting had been a trap set by Lee Woo-yeon, knowing everything. Sorry. What? For making you wait. Let's go finish our meal. Lee Woo-yeon's expression was the same as usual. Choi In-seop breathed a sigh of relief internally. It seemed safe for now. You don't need to drive me home today. I'll get there on my own. All right. Choi In-seop naturally learned what the conversation with the woman had been about. If possible, filming a sex video would be a method, but it was out of the question. Just thinking about it made him feel sick. Are you feeling unwell? Excuse me. Your expression. Lee Woo-yeon pointed to the mirror, indicating Choi In-seop, while searching his back pocket for a handkerchief. Choi In-seop realized he had been unconsciously pressing his stomach and making a pained face. I'm fine. It's nothing. That's a relief. Did I leave it behind? Choi In-seop quickly took out his handkerchief and offered it. Lee Woo-yeon thanked him and accepted it. Holding the damp handkerchief, Choi In-seop grabbed Lee Woo-yeon's sleeve as he was about to leave the restroom. What's wrong? Just to your head for a moment. Following the manager's request, Lee Woo-yeon slightly bent his head. Choi In-seop wiped the area around Lee Woo-yeon's lips with the handkerchief. It was an excessive gesture, but he told himself it was something a devoted manager should do. You had lipstick on there, it's done. You're very attentive, Choi In-seop. Li Wuyun's voice held a faint trace of amusement, like the salty breeze at the seaside. Thank you. If he could, Choi In-seop would have punched Li Wuyun in the face right then, calling him a bastard and telling him he deserved to go to hell. But such actions wouldn't affect Li Wuyun in the slightest. By the way, what were you going to say during the meal? I forgot. Li Wuyun smiled and gestured for them to return to the room. As Choi In-seop followed Li Wuyun down the hall, he thought to himself. Although he hadn't gathered any concrete evidence yet, he was close enough to Li Wuyun to make a move. For now, that was enough. Let's be satisfied with this, Choi In-seop told himself. Mr. In-seop. Eating his noodles, Choi In-seop looked up in surprise when he heard his name from manager CHA. You're definitely a fan of Li Wuyun, aren't you? Yes, but why? Although Choi In-seop had declared himself a fan to get the job, he couldn't help feeling uneasy. I am a fan. But why do you ask? I've never seen Li Wuyun so quiet. Well, except for the time when he was quiet in a different way when I managed him for a bit. Manager CHA fiddled with his mustache, recalling the horrible memories. Li Wuyun praised you, saying you're doing a good job. CEO Kim chimed in. Choi In-seop, slurping his noodles, tried to hide his embarrassment. You're really diligent, managing his preferences, personality, schedule, everything so well. He finds it very convenient, apparently. That's because it's all in the notebook. The notebook manager CHA had handed over during the transition contained essential notes about Li Wuyun. However, it didn't mention his favorite type of bread, coffee preferences based on the weather, conversation guidelines, or ways to avoid upsetting him. Good choice. I was worried about assigning someone with no experience to Li Wuyun, but after reading that report, I was convinced. In-seop is definitely a fan of Wuyun, no doubt about it. In this industry, word of mouth is everything, so Choi In-seop couldn't fabricate his manager experience. After much deliberation, he submitted a resume along with a detailed report on Li Wuyun. This report, nearly 20 pages long, contained a thorough analysis of the actor's career and future directions. If there were a field of study called Li Wuyun, Choi In-seop's report would earn him a doctorate. CEO Kim was so impressed by the report that he immediately called for Choi In-seop without looking at any other resumes. Why do you like Li Wuyun? What? You said you're a fan. It's not common for a man to be a fan of a male actor. Are you that way? Choi In-seop's face turned bright red, and he quickly shook his head. No, absolutely not. I've never thought of Li Wuyun that way, not even for a second. I swear to God. He showed his cross necklace as he spoke, his wide eyes proclaiming his innocence. I don't care even if you are. There are plenty in this field. No, really. I'm not lying. Don't be so serious. CEO Kim likes to tease people, and reacting like that just makes it worse. Manager CHA chuckled, causing Choi In-seop's face to redden even more. He took out his notebook and started jotting something down. What are you writing? CEO likes to tease people. Are you seriously noting that down? Ha ha. Seeing Choi In-seop's notebook, CEO Kim laughed heartily, slapping his knee. Manager CHA leaned back on the sofa, laughing as well. Why would you write that down? I just want to make sure I don't make mistakes. What's wrong with making a few mistakes? And that's not even a mistake. Ha ha. Despite the loud laughter around him, Choi In-seop finished his notes and quietly put the notebook back in his pocket. When I was young, I was a bit slow to understand things. What? So I write down anything new. It's a habit. If it bothers you, I'll erase it. As a child, Inseop was slower than others in everything. His development lagged behind, even compared to other Asian children. He was slow in speaking, reading, writing, and understanding objects. His mother, after he learned to read, placed post-it notes on everything around the house with names and explanations. He always wrote those notes in his notebook and read them before bed. Now, he was no different from others, but the habit remained. Writing down anything new and reviewing it before bed made him feel organized and calm. This habit proved extremely useful in analyzing Lee Woo-Yun. Seeing him worryingly holding his pen over his notebook, CEO Kim shook his head. It's fine. Write whatever you want. Even if you want to note down my fashion today, go ahead. CEO Kim spread his shoulders proudly. Manager CHA clicked his tongue in mock disapproval. Kim, who couldn't let go of his modeling past, still enjoyed the attention on his appearance. CEO, you need to let that go. Why does the CEO care more about his clothes than the celebrities? Would you prefer if I looked shabby? Like an old, washed-up celebrity? Despite telling his agency's celebrities to ignore malicious comments and articles, CEO Kim scrutinized any photo of himself that surfaced and would politely request the journalist to use a different photo if he didn't like it. While it was amusing and humanizing, manager CHA often chided him to act his age. You look great, CEO. As always. Really? At Choi In-seop's compliment, CEO Kim's mood brightened. In-seop pulled out his notebook again. Should I note that down too? I wrote it yesterday as well. Haha, no need. Writing the same thing every day must be tiring. Let me see. When did you write it last? As CEO Kim leaned in to see the notebook, manager CHA playfully pushed his face away. Anyway, we're really grateful for your work, In-seop. We were quite worried. In-seop didn't understand the concept of conscience well as a child, often confusing it with the heart. His heart hurt when his conscience was pricked. Even now, he felt a pang in his chest. He pressed his hand discreetly over his heart and lowered his head. Thank you for your concern. I'll keep doing my best. Manager CHA looked at In-seop's humble demeanor with pity. Such a nice young man, dealing with that demon. In-seop, listen. Yes? Manager CHA lowered his voice and looked around. If Woo-Yun ever gives you a hard time or if something strange happens. Strange? Like, suddenly. CEO Kim cut off manager CHA with a wave of his hand. Don't say unnecessary things. Liking In-seop as a manager was different from sharing all secrets. CEO Kim frowned, stopping manager CHA. But, I mean, In-seop might stick around for a while. Reporters are constantly hounding us about Woo-Yun changing managers. There's only so much we can block. Choi In-seop pretended to focus on his noodles. He needed to do his job quietly and disappear without leaving any lasting impressions. Isn't today the start of Woo-Yun's Drama City filming? Yes. Yesterday was the script reading, and today is the first day of filming. Choi In-seop responded with the precision of a student taking an exam. Then why are you at the office today? There's an outdoor shoot this afternoon. I came to the office to fetch some items Woo-Yun asked for. Mr. Kim suggested I eat lunch before leaving, so I'm having noodles. Sorry. Choi In-seop explained in a tense manner, making CEO Kim laugh. Relax. I was just curious, not blaming you. Holding his chopsticks, Choi In-seop looked back and forth between CEO Kim and manager CHA, finally relaxing his shoulders. But isn't time tight for an outdoor shoot? Who's taking Woo-Yun? He said he'd go directly, as he was nearby. Both CEO Kim and manager CHA caught the implication in nearby. In-seop, Woo-Yun is meeting a woman, isn't he? Choi In-seop silently split his noodles with his chopsticks. Denying it would be an obvious lie, but confirming felt intrusive. Who is Woo-Yun seeing now? CEO Kim added to the questioning. Choi In-seop, unable to answer, stood up abruptly. Oh. I should get going. Manager CHA laughed heartily, pressing Choi In-seop's shoulder to make him sit back down. You're truly a fan of Lee Woo-Yun. Your loyalty is undeniable. It wasn't loyalty, it was betrayal. Observation and revenge too. But another short drama for Lee Woo-Yun. Those don't get good ratings. Let it be. It's his habit to do one before taking on a full-length drama. Lee Woo-Yun wasn't picky about choosing dramas or movies. He chose projects that he felt right about. Most of the works he appeared in were hits, but he didn't only choose mainstream projects. Lee Woo-Yun enjoyed short dramas. He especially liked 3 or 4 episode special dramas that broadcast occasionally. Short dramas ended before gaining popularity, had low ratings, and paid little. It was rare for an actor of Lee Woo-Yun's caliber to appear in them. Despite the agency's opposition, Lee Woo-Yun enjoyed appearing in short dramas. He said in interviews that the brief immersion in different roles was good practice, but CEO Kim believed there was more to it. The short dramas Lee Woo-Yun appears in have good scripts and are well completed. It may not seem beneficial to the company immediately, but it definitely helps in the long run. They receive positive reactions not just from fans but also from general viewers. Recalling some of the information he had gathered about Lee Woo-Yun, Choi In-seop replied, causing CEO Kim and manager CHA to exchange glances. You're really a fan. He is, no doubt about it. Yes, I'm a fan. CEO Kim looked genuinely touched. Stay with us for a long time, beside our Lee Woo-Yun. Yes. Choi In-seop mumbled and stood up. Staying in this conversation any longer was unbearable. Pretending to be a fan when he wasn't was exhausting. It was easier to quietly do his job, taking notes, driving, and assisting Lee Woo-Yun. I'll get going now. Leaving already? Yes, if I leave now, I'll be on time. He would arrive about 30 minutes early, but he preferred waiting over rushing. I'll see you later. Thank you for the meal. Leaving just like that. You're really leaving? Both men looked at him with wide eyes, holding on to his clothes. The amusement park was less than a 30-minute drive away. He had already prepared everything Lee Woo-Yun had asked for, so there was no problem. Being stopped so seriously made Choi In-seop feel uneasy. Did I make a mistake? He resolved to note down anything he didn't know in his notebook as he waited for their response. Standing in front of the large mirror at the amusement park entrance, Choi In-seop adjusted his clothes with a dissatisfied expression. Since starting this job, it was the first time he wasn't wearing a suit. He had faked his age by 2 years and already looked young, so he insisted on wearing suits. For the outdoor shoot, CEO Kim had dragged him to a nearby boutique, buying him casual jeans and a down jacket. Manager CHA even bought him the latest heated thermal underwear, insisting he'd need it. Despite his objections, they insisted he wouldn't be able to leave unless he changed clothes, leaving him no choice but to comply. In the US, he thought he looked younger because he was Asian. But in Korea, he learned that people saw him as much younger than his actual age. He had to accept that he looked young. On the day he realized this, he had scribbled in his notebook, "Unfortunately, I look young." He disliked his appearance, his slightly hunched back, skinny frame, wide-eyed, round nose, freckles, and pale skin. Sigh. Standing in front of the mirror, he sighed deeply. Awkwardly adjusting his collar, he habitually checked the time on his phone. I'm late. He quickened his pace. The unexpected shopping had delayed him, and now he was running late. However, he didn't run, instead taking long strides as if he didn't know how to run, just walking fast. He repeated this until he reached his destination, 10 minutes late. Li Wuyun's presence had already drawn a large crowd at the amusement park, eager to catch a glimpse of the star. As Li Wuyun walked towards the director for a discussion, the women in the crowd surged forward to get closer to him. "Excuse me. Excuse me." Choi In-seop had to push through the crowd to reach Li Wuyun. "Oppa. Wuyun Oppa. Oppa. I love you. Oppa. Oppa, look here, please." It was chaos. FD and park staff tried to create a barricade to hold back the crowd. Choi In-seop squeezed through, repeatedly explaining with a trembling voice that he was the manager. No one paid attention to the skinny young man's pleas. He kept identifying himself, despite being jostled and pushed. He explained to the FD that he was the manager, but they didn't even look at him. In casual clothes, he looked like a college freshman at best, making his claim less credible. "Ma manager. Excuse me. Manager. Manager." The barricade collapsed. Fanatic fans surged forward. As Choi In-seop fell to the ground, he feared he might be trampled to death. He curled up, trying to protect his head with his hands. Then, a hand reached through the crowd and grabbed his wrist, pulling him up. High-pitched screams followed as his vision cleared. Realizing he had fallen on someone, he panicked and shouted, "I'm sorry. I'm the manager." "Oh no." A kind voice came from above him. Even without looking up, Choi In-seop knew who it was. "You're late today, manager." "Oh. Yes." Choi In-seop quickly stood up. Li Wuyun brushed off his clothes and smiled. "I almost didn't recognize you without a suit." "Yes. They insisted I dress warmly for the outdoor shoot. If you don't like it, I can change." "It's fine. I don't mind." While surveying the scene as security and FD managed the crowd, Li Wuyun remembered something and extended his hand. "What about the item I requested?" "Yes, here it is." Choi In-seop handed over a small box he had brought from the office. Li Wuyun opened it and smiled. "Thank you. I would have been in trouble without this." "What's that?" Inside the box was a small pink stone. Li Wuyun had asked Choi In-seop to bring it from the office cabinet to the shoot today. Though he had brought it, In-seop didn't understand what it was for. "It's my lucky stone." "Lucky, a lucky stone." Choi In-seop tilted his head. Did Li Wuyun believe in superstitions? Wasn't it the opposite? I'll need to update my information tonight. When I first filmed a movie, there was a scene by the beach. I picked up this stone there, just absent-mindedly put it in my pocket. It became a kind of good luck charm. I see. I understand. Having read about the importance of superstitions in Eastern cultures, In-seop nodded earnestly. I need to touch it before filming to feel at ease. It's a bit silly, right? No, not at all. Li Wuyun lightly rubbed the stone with his fingers a couple of times, then closed the box and handed it back to Choi In-seop. Keep it for me and return it before we leave today. Yes, understood. Inseop carefully placed the box back into his pocket, deciding to keep his hand in that pocket all day to ensure he didn't lose it. Everyone not involved, please leave the set. We are about to start filming. A man in sunglasses, who appeared to be the site manager, gestured for Inseop to leave. Hello. I'm Lee Woo-Yun's manager. Inseop bowed, causing the man to raise an eyebrow. You look so young. I thought you were a student. Wait over there. Yes, thank you. Though told to wait, Choi Inseop stayed near Lee Woo-Yun, ready for any instructions he might give. Why don't you find a warm place and have some coffee? Drama shoots can be quite boring. I'm fine. He couldn't take his eyes off Lee Woo-Yun for even a moment. That was the best he could do right now. It'll be boring. But maybe not for you, being a fan. Yes, that's right. Pretending to be a fan in front of others was hard, but it was even harder in front of Lee Woo-Yun himself. Yet, it was the only way to avoid suspicion. Since I'm a fan, it's enjoyable to watch whatever you do. After saying this, Inseop lowered his head. He couldn't bear to meet Lee Woo-Yun's eyes. He remembered Jenny saying Lee Woo-Yun's laughter sounded like the heavenly music of harps. Feeling his eyes start to sting, he clenched his fist and looked up. Woo-Yun. In this drama, Lee Woo-Yun's co-star, Jang Yansu, approached with a child who looked about 4 or 5 years old. Who's this? A younger sibling. He's my manager. Nice to meet you. Choi Inseop always bowed respectfully, regardless of who he was addressing. He never acted superior or arrogant. He looks so young, I thought he was your younger brother. He doesn't look like a manager. The clothes. He's very good at his job. Lee Woo-Yun answered for him. He's the most competent and diligent manager I've ever had. Inseop looked at Lee Woo-Yun in surprise. Hearing sincere praise in his calm, gentle voice made him uneasy. Even though he was wearing a warm jacket, his fingertips felt cold. Who's this pretty little girl? Lee Woo-Yun asked, pointing to the child hiding behind Jang Yansu. She's the child actor for this project. Say hi, Ji-ha. The little girl, looking at Lee Woo-Yun, whimpered and clung to Jang Yansu's skirt. Lee Woo-Yun knelt down to make eye contact, but the girl turned away. What's wrong with her? She's not usually shy. Say hi. This is the uncle you'll be acting with. Hello. Is your name Ji-ha? When Lee Woo-Yun spoke to her, the girl burst into tears. Jang Yansu, flustered, tried to comfort her, but she wouldn't stop crying and even lay on the ground, making it hard to pick her up. Where's her mom? Jang Yansu asked, and a nearby staff member hurriedly explained that she was in the restroom. Let me hold her. Choi Inseop took the child from Jang Yansu. The girl cried and struggled, but Inseop, grateful for wearing casual clothes today, gently patted her back and walked around. Soon, she stopped crying. Do you have kids? You're good with them. I took care of my younger siblings. Inseop answered while soothing the child. Lee Woo-Yun tilted his head slightly, puzzled. Siblings? You have siblings, Inseop. Recalling that he had bought another Choi Inseop's identity, he quickly added. My cousins. You must like children. Yes, I do. She's asleep. She must have been tired and cranky from the unfamiliar environment. Inseop thought about how hard child actors must have it while continuing to gently pat her back. That's good. Could you watch her during the shoot? Her mom seems more interested in flirting with the PD than in her kid. Jen Yansa spoke bluntly, then smiled at Inseop. He nodded in agreement, but Lee Woo-yeon interrupted. He's my manager. What? He's my manager, but is watching someone else's kid. Oh, come on, Woo-yeon. Jen Yansa, known for her acting skills and good personality, casually patted Lee Woo-yeon's shoulder and laughed. Though Lee Woo-yeon smiled, he didn't seem pleased. Holding the sleeping child, Inseop glanced nervously at Lee Woo-yeon. If he got angry, Inseop wouldn't be able to record any evidence while holding the child. Oh, Jiha fell asleep. Jiha's mother appeared, surprised to see Inseop holding her. Yes, she seemed tired. That's strange. She usually doesn't fall asleep in just anyone's arms. She must have been very tired. Lee Woo-yeon's comment made Jiha's mother's eyes light up. Oh, she'll need to wake up soon for the shoot. Should I wake her? Though the mother said this, her gaze was fixed on Lee Woo-yeon. As Choi Inseop patted the still crying child, he shook his head. She can sleep a bit more. Before he could finish his sentence, the child's mother began to chatter, praising Lee Woo-yeon and expressing how much she was looking forward to his performance. She mentioned she had been a fan for a long time and how much more handsome he was in person. Jen Yansa, who caught Choi Inseop's eye, shrugged as if to say, "See what I mean," and then left the awkward scene. Choi Inseop, still holding the child, stood in the uncomfortable atmosphere with the mother fawning over Lee Woo-yeon. My child is really good at acting, and she has dreams of becoming an actress. Woo-yeon, could you watch her and see how talented she is? Sure, I'll do that. Choi Inseop looked at the sleeping girl in his arms, wondering what kind of dreams such a young child could possibly have. Inseop. Lee Woo-yeon gestured to him. Yes. Could you get some coffee? Now? Yes. My throat feels a bit sore from the cold. Sorry. I'll get it right away. As Choi Inseop hesitated with the child, Lee Woo-yeon took the child and handed her back to her mother. A latte, please. Yes, I'll be right back. Choi Inseop asked a staff member for the location of a coffee shop and quickly made his way there. When he returned with the coffee, filming had already started. He kept the coffee warm against his chest, waiting for the director to call cut. When there was a break, Choi Inseop handed the coffee to Lee Woo-yeon. Without looking up from his script, Lee Woo-yeon took a sip and muttered. The coffee is cold. I'm sorry. Should I get you another one? No, it's fine. Despite his words, Lee Woo-yeon didn't drink the coffee and placed it on a nearby table. Choi Inseop began to sweat internally. This was his first mistake since becoming Lee Woo-yeon's manager. He anxiously glanced between the cold coffee and Lee Woo-yeon, wondering if he should go get another one or what he should say. What if he got fired over this? Have you read this script? Lee Woo-yeon's sudden question made Choi Inseop look up, startled. The script? Yes, have you read it? Yes, I have. Choi Inseop had read all of Lee Woo-yeon's scripts, both past and present, including the upcoming historical drama. He made sure to be prepared. How can a man love a divorced woman with a child? What? How can someone love someone despite all these flaws? Can you understand that? The unexpected question left Choi Inseop momentarily confused. Not knowing Lee Woo-yeon's intent, he thought for a moment before answering. If you really love someone, such things wouldn't matter, I guess. Lee Woo-yeon smirked at his response. I think it would matter to me. I hate kids. What? I'm kidding. Just kidding. While most people would dismiss Lee Woo-yeon's comment as a joke or a misunderstanding, Choi In-seop couldn't. Do you really hate kids? Of course not. I would never. Lee Woo-yeon, saying this, picked up the now-awake child actor and gently rocked her. His soothing, lullaby-like voice made the surrounding women sigh in admiration. When the child stopped crying, Lee Woo-yeon smiled at Choi In-seop, showing his white, even teeth. While others might see a pleasant smile, Choi In-seop saw something chilling. Philip is a con man. Oh, when he smiles, it makes me feel like I could disappear at any moment. He's smiling at me, but pretending not to see me, just to tease me. He's a natural-born con man. Jenny's voice, full of bliss, echoed in his mind. Choi In-seop turned his head to avoid seeing Lee Woo-yeon smile. After a while, filming resumed. Lee Woo-yeon was an exceptional actor, seamlessly leading his co-stars, including the young child actor. Choi In-seop pressed his cold fingertips with his thumb until he felt the pain and the blood flowing. If he didn't know Lee Woo-yeon's true nature, he would have been fooled by his performance, thinking he was amazing. If he didn't know. But did he truly know Lee Woo-yeon's real self? Was it right to believe Jenny's words alone and assume Lee Woo-yeon was a scumbag? No. He had to believe. He was the only one who had to believe Jenny. Choi In-seop shook his head, firming his resolve. The sharp wind felt like it was cutting through his heart with each gust. In the cold wind, Choi In-seop silently watched Lee Woo-yeon's performance. This is the last scene, so let's give it our all. The director encouraged the crew and actors. The unusually cold weather was making everyone suffer. Choi In-seop now understood why CEO Kim and manager CHA had insisted he wear such a thick jacket, feeling the cold seeping into his bones. Managing the crowd at each location and responding to Lee Woo-yeon's numerous requests had kept him busy all day. He hadn't had a moment to rest, also taking care of the child actor whose mother was neglecting her, as Jang Yeon-seo had noted. Lee Woo-yeon, sipping hot green tea, watched Choi In-seop carrying the child actor. The mother, engrossed in conversation with the director, seemed oblivious to her child. Choi In-seop handed a balloon he had bought to the child, playing the role of a caregiver. Lee Woo-yeon's smile widened. He had been thinking of letting go of Choi In-seop. Despite being perfect in every way, understanding his preferences and needs, being quick-witted, and having a good personality, Choi In-seop's perfection made Lee Woo-yeon uncomfortable. It felt as if Choi In-seop had researched and molded himself to fit the role of Lee Woo-yeon's manager perfectly. His claim of being a fan was amusing. At first, Lee Woo-yeon had brushed it off, but he soon realized that Choi In-seop was lying. As a natural-born actor, Lee Woo-yeon could easily tell if someone genuinely liked him or was just pretending. Choi In-seop was not a fan, despite knowing all the details about him that only a true fan would know. He was pretending to be a fan, desperately trying to win Lee Woo-yeon's favor. It's amusing, but... Lee Woo-yeon muttered, watching In-seop glance at him while carrying the child. It was amusing, but unsettling. Time to change things up. Mr. Woo-yeon. In-seop, panting slightly from carrying the child, approached him. Despite his obvious fatigue, he spoke without a hint of complaint. I've rescheduled your aesthetic appointment for later today. All right. It looks like we'll be running late. Outdoor shoots often ran over time due to unforeseen variables. CEO Kim insisted on skincare treatments after outdoor shoots to combat the negative effects of the cold wind on Lee Woo-yeon's skin. He usually complied, though he had forgotten about it today. Despite being busy all day, the new manager had remembered. Mr. In-seop, you're really competent. I'm just doing my job. Every time Choi In-seop received a compliment, he looked unsure where to direct his gaze, visibly uncomfortable. It wasn't the pleasant embarrassment that accompanies a genuine compliment, but rather an awkward discomfort, trying to hide his displeasure. Because you're a manager. Or because you're a fan. Both. Lee Woo-yeon smiled. Everything would be perfect if not for this. It was clear he didn't genuinely like him, yet he tried desperately to win his favor. It was amusing, but also unpleasant. The latter feeling was strong enough for Li Wuyun to decide to change managers soon. Wuyun, sit here. We'll just focus on expressions, no dialogue needed. Got it? Just hold Yance's hand without saying anything. Sure. Yance, are you good with rides? Of course, I love them. How about you, Wuyun? I'm fine. This ride isn't that scary, so don't worry. If you get scared, you can scream and we'll edit it out. Extras, don't scream too loudly, it could damage the microphones. The director's joke made everyone laugh as they boarded the ride. Li Wuyun held Jane Yance's hand and helped her on before sitting beside her. There's an empty seat here. An assistant director pointed to the seat behind Li Wuyun. Who's riding? Anyone? Someone from the lighting team, maybe. Despite the assistant director's shout, no one volunteered. The seat directly behind Li Wuyun, which would appear on camera, seemed too intimidating. Hey, Wuyun's manager. Yes? Get on. If you're scared, just keep your head down. Me. Choi and Siep stammered in disbelief. It's not very scary. You'll be fine. But, I don't. What's so scary for a man? Just get on. The director gestured impatiently, and Choi and Siep, with a flushed face, looked at Li Wuyun for help. In that brief glance, Li Wuyun could read his manager's plea. Help me. If you get scared, just hold my hand. Li Wuyun turned to Jane Yance with a kind smile, dismissing his manager's plight as irrelevant. If this caused his manager to quit, it wouldn't be a bad outcome. If you get scared, you can hold my hand too, Wuyun. I'll hold on tight. Jane Yance cheerfully replied while lowering the safety bar. Pale-faced, Choi and Siep hesitantly took the seat behind them. The child actor had been taken away by her mother. Director, Trying to say something, Choi and Siep called out weakly, but the director was too focused on camera positioning. Mr. Wuyun. Yes? Seeing Choi and Siep's terrified expression, Jane Yance looked concerned. Are you okay? Wuyun's manager seems really scared. Do you want me to hold your hand? Li Wuyun teased, extending his hand with a playful smile. Choi and Siep tightly pressed his lips together and shook his head. The safety officers made their rounds, lowering the safety bars. No. Oh. Hello. Choi In-seop shouted, but the heavy sound of the safety bar locking into place cut him off. Hey, Woo-Yun's manager, quiet down. Everything is being recorded. Ready, start. The director called action. Choi In-seop clutched the safety bar with a pale face, trembling. Lee Woo-Yun, seeing his manager's fear, smirked. Hold on tight. He whispered to Jang Yun-soo, glancing back at Choi In-seop. The ride began to move. I met a prince. Huh? Again? Yeah. This time, he's definitely the prince I've been waiting for. Every time Jenny moved, the wooden floor creaked. Her worn-out pink cardigan had elbows patched too many times, and her black skirt was shiny from wear and tear. Jenny smiled broadly, showing her crooked teeth. She clasped her hands as she sat by Peter's bed. Today, Sandra, that wretched girl, messed with me again. She tripped me. That wretched girl. Really, that wretched girl. Jenny spoke with a face full of injustice, while Peter, who had spent the day lying in bed reading, listened with apparent interest. So what happened? I fell. Right in the middle of the hallway. That wretched girl was laughing with the soccer team boys and asked if I was okay, but she was asking the hallway, not me. Awful. She'll get what she deserves. Peter frowned in agreement. The Sandra Jenny always spoke of sounded like the worst kind of witch. Everyone laughed. I was picking up my pen that fell from my pencil case. Have I told you how much I cherish that pen? Aunt Spencer gave it to me. The one and only, boat-shaped pen Aunt Spencer gave you for your birthday. Peter completed her sentence. Jenny smiled warmly, remembering their shared stories. She reached out and patted Peter's head. But the prince, he saw everything. He helped me up. His name is Philip. Peter's expression darkened as Jenny mentioned Philip. He had heard of him before, a charming new student who seemed too perfect to be true. Be careful, Jenny. You never know who you can trust. I know, but it's different. I can feel it. Just as the ride reached its peak, Choi In-seop's thoughts were yanked back to reality. The roller coaster plunged, and he let out a muffled scream, gripping the safety bar as if his life depended on it. Behind him, Lee Woo-Yun's quiet laughter was almost lost in the rush of wind and the screams of other riders. By the time the ride ended, Choi In-seop was pale and trembling. He stumbled out, supported by a worried staff member. Lee Woo-Yun watched him with a bemused expression. Are you all right, Mr. In-seop? Yes. Oh. I'm fine, Choi In-seop stammered, still shaking. Lee Woo-Yun's eyes glinted with a mix of amusement and something darker. You're doing a great job, Mr. In-seop. Keep it up. Choi In-seop forced a smile, nodding. Inside, he steeled himself. He had to endure this. For Jenny's sake. For the promise he had made. As the day's filming continued, Lee Woo-Yun's words echoed in his mind. He would keep going. He had to.
맞아. 바로 그거야.
Jenny beamed with a bright smile. Despite having heard the story countless times, Peter always looked delighted each time he listened. She was his only friend who visited the attic. That pen rolled over there. So I reached out to pick it up. Jenny's cheeks turned rosy, and her blue eyes sparkled as Peter eagerly awaited her next words, sharing in her excitement. He picked it up. My pen. The one and only pen. His fingers were so elegant and beautiful. He had black hair and black eyes, just like you. Hearing about the black hair and black eyes, Peter felt a sense of kinship with Jenny's prince, whom he had never met. Like me? No, not at all. Oh. Peter. I love you more than anyone, but you and the prince are completely different. He's the quarterback. Quarterback. The football team at Jenny's school was famous. Peter was astonished to hear that an Asian was playing quarterback. He's tall, handsome, and has such a nice voice. He asked me if I was okay while handing me the pen. His voice was like chocolate. Wow. I didn't know there were people like that. Jenny's prince seemed to be the complete opposite of Peter, who was frail, thin, and spent his days lying in bed reading. He's also really smart. Amazing. And very popular with the girls. Even that wretched Sandra is one of the girls chasing after him. Wow. Asian boys usually weren't very popular. While Asian girls were sometimes admired for their exotic allure, boys didn't usually fare as well due to physical comparisons with Western peers. He has such a kind smile, too. The prince does. Every time Jenny described him, Peter's mental image of the prince became clearer: tall, beautiful hands, a chocolate-like voice, a kind smile, a quarterback. Just watch. I'll go to the graduation party with the prince. I'll kiss him right in front of Sandra, Rachel, Kelly, and Emily to show them. Jenny listed the names of the girls who bullied her, her blue eyes burning with determination. Peter burst into laughter at the seriousness in her voice. Ha ha ha. What's so funny? Do you think it's funny? No, it's just you met him today and you've already imagined all that. Of course. I'm going to have 5 kids with him. The youngest will be named after you. You'll be their godfather. I hope his mysterious black eyes and your blue eyes will mix half and half. She spoke like a girl dreaming, clasping her hands together. Jennifer. Jennifer. Where the hell is that damn pig? The raspy voice of Jenny's mother, Matilda, called out from beyond the window. Matilda, always wearing a tight black dress and with a makeup-less face, always looked exhausted. She unfailingly called for her daughter at 6 o'clock with the same intensity as if she would kill her. The entire neighborhood hated Matilda's yelling, but no one could shut her up. As a devout Mormon, she saw not keeping to meal times as a sin that would send one to hell. Both parents would beat their daughter without hesitation for committing such a sin. The townspeople disliked the eccentric couple who followed a fringe religion. No one liked their daughter, Jenny, either. For Jenny, the only friend was the shy, skinny Asian boy next door. And for Peter, Jenny was his only friend as well. It's time for me to go. Jenny smiled, standing up from the bed, making the sheets rustle. She kissed Peter on his sweaty cheek as she said goodbye. Take care. Don't get sick. Tomorrow's your hospital visit, right? Yeah, for my regular checkup. You need to get better so you can come to school with me. Just wait. I'll be back at school by March. They both knew it was an empty promise, but neither showed it. Peter, who had congenital heart disease and had undergone several surgeries, had recently had a seizure during a walk and now spent most of his time lying down. He had already had 3 surgeries. Returning to school seemed nearly impossible. If I die, I'll give you my heart. My dear Peter. Jenny said this as she looked at Peter from the doorway. It was her usual farewell. Peter smiled and responded. Your heart wouldn't suit me. Besides, if I received it, I'd probably fall in love with each of your school's football players in turn. I don't want to become gay. Jenny laughed. Her crooked teeth were even more noticeable when she laughed. Peter liked Jenny. It wasn't a romantic attraction, he just liked her as a person. He always thought it was unfair that people didn't see Jenny's charm because she was noisy, had delusions, was fat, and dressed shabbily. Peter picked up the notebook beside his bed. It was his habit to jot down the day's events or anything that happened. These days, his notes were filled with conversations he had with Jenny, but he found joy in it. Goodbye, Jenny. Goodbye, Peter. After their farewells, with the pen in hand, a thought occurred to Peter, and he called out to Jenny. Jenny. Yes? What's the prince's name?